Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first Sound Community Chat for 2022. I am joined here today by designer Michael Shinall and lead developer Fabio Cury. How are both of you?
Hey guys, I'm super excited to be here talking about Song of Ice and Fire. It's been a while since December, right? But now we're here to talk a little bit of what we've been doing, right? And a lot of the final fixes and tweaks that we've been doing for the January patch, or let's call it the Q1 patch. Actually, I'm sorry.
Well, here, meanwhile, as we keep scheduling these at like the most inopportune time, as we mentioned, I'm currently getting, sunbeamed right here in the office, and there's nothing to do about that. So that's how things are going here. But yeah, as Fabio said, very excited. This is our first chat of the new year. We're here today to talk about some updates and the timelines for all those and everything, and get things rolling for a cool 2022.
Well, you first mentioned this patch about what 2 months ago in November, or
Oh,
was it?
that was last year, Helena. I don't have
Oh
any
yes.
reference of time for that in the slightest. Months turn into years. I still remember like the game only launched a couple months ago, right? It definitely hasn't been 5 years. Oh.
No, not at
But
all.
yeah, we
No.
talked about this. I would believe at the I think it was sometime in November. So yes, we're looking about 2 months ago. We talked about this was up and coming and everything. And now we're moving forward on that.
Should we start? I see we already have almost 300 people joining us, so maybe we can begin. Should we wait a little bit longer?
Um, no, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about, I guess, just to start off and set the tone, right? We wanted to show everyone what to expect from this patch that we're going to make for Q1 and what changes are supposed to be expected. And also, once again, because I beg your pardon. I lost completely my trail of thought, but
We're off to a good
I'm just
start
so
this year.
excited. I just want to show all the cool new stuff. But we're it's just a quick spoiler of what's to come. Everything is going to be out very soon, but we'll leave the dates to the end. And really, once again, just to set the tone of what to expect and get this year starting really hot and exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, Fabio said we'll wait till the end to talk about dates, but I mean, that's not really an exciting thing. So we can get that done out of the way early here. Yep. Reversal.
Already a plot twist this early in the live stream.
It
But
is
really,
Song of
as
Ice and Fire, right?
I mean, if it was like super exciting or something, then that'd be one thing. But I mean, like as far as the updates go, we're putting the final touches on all the documents and everything. Those will be up online, hopefully within the next week or two. Not giving any firm date there because we're still kind of waiting for some graphical tweaks, and then we have to coordinate that with all of our IT guys for the website, the app, and all those things there. So that'll be coming very soon. And that's going to be updates, the same thing, the file formattings we've done before. They'll be all be able to print off the website, included in the new tournament document, because technically that is what all the updates are uh, noted for, is for official tournament plays. So we're just wrapping all those into the tournament document along with the updated game modes and all those files as well. So again, those will be up on the website. We'll make an announcement when they go live, but just to get that out of the way now, don't expect those to be like up, like, oh, surprise, into stream, they're up. Spoilers there. That's just not going to happen today. But on that note, we do have some items to go over to talk about, some previews from the upcoming changes. We've selected just a single unit card from each of the factions to go over and just kind of talk about, why it's changing, what's changing, and just to give a general idea of the scope of what's going on here. Now, of course, it's not just limited to unit cards here. Anything that we felt like might need addressing, unit cards, attachment cards, tactics cards, NCUs, everything like that, if we felt that needed to be addressed and looked at, then we did so. And of course, those will all be available free online updates in the app and the standard places that, we've always made this stuff available for. So I think that covers everything before we actually just jump right into it. Fabio, is there anything else you wanted to bring up or add there?
Yeah, I'd like to add that all these changes are just quality of life improvements for season 2021, or
22.
version 2021. It's
Well,
it's still
sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I
it's
see what you're saying. Yes.
right. It's not a new version where there are no complete overhauls, nothing like that. It's really now just focusing on anything that slipped through the cracks, or that like Michael said, that we looked and we saw room for improvement.
Like we talked about in the previous one, this is the same type of formatting that you saw when we did patches, back in 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. These are quality of life adjustments, some points adjustments, some stats adjustments, things like that. Just those little tweaks that can push something to being where we feel it needs to be.
I see it. Before we jump in, I see a few questions. I think we might want to get to them. How many units can we anticipate changes for?
Well, that really varies by faction. For example, like Greyjoys have, I think, a total of 2 cards that are updated, and that was really just a wording update for them. There was nothing like actually significantly gameplay changing about them on that. So really, it's hard to say like an average per faction because it's different. Like again, if something needed evaluating or we felt it did, then we changed it. But I would say overall, if you're looking at all the cards and everything in entire units, like each faction, less than 5%, something like that. A couple cards here and there, a couple units, a couple NCUs here, and sometimes it's just a points change. So it's not even a major like thing of that nature. Again, that's a really tough question because it really does vary by faction. But on that note, something to say is that when we release the document, everything, it will have a full like change log in it as well, with our developer and design notes on it as to why it was modified in whatever capacity there. And sometimes that's just a note of unit was reduced by 1 cost, things like that. But if it's a bigger change, then if it feels like something we need clarifying on, then that'll be included in that.
Okay. I see a few questions that you have addressed in the past, but I think people might be joining us for the first time. So if we can just go over them really quickly, just 1 second. Can we expect balance changes once per year or quarterly moving forward?
Well, we don't really want to set like exact timelines and timestamps for these things. Otherwise, then we're kind of pushing ourselves to change for the sake of change and just to keep a promise that might not even be relevant, right? So we really change when change has to be done, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to rush things. We do it always thinking of how to make the best rules and keep everything balanced. It's really about keeping a quality product more than promising periodic changes. If, let's say, if they're not necessary, then we would still sort of have to do something. So I'd like to keep it open and always say change is done when it's needed. Right? I know that's vague. I know that's not really a great answer, but it's the honest one.
Well, that's like historically how we've done that as well. Because if you look at like back at 1.4 was the first time that we actually made card changes. But then when we moved to 1.5, I think the total number of cards that got changed between that version was like 3. Like that's across the entire game. So this is just going to have a touch more than like what we would usually have because we did the 2021 overhaul there. So everything got overhauled, and now there's a little like the touch up to that. But in 6 months from now, if we look at it and go like, okay, well look, there's everything's going smoothly, then that's how we'll go there. We're not going to make changes just for the sake of oh, it's 6 months, time to make changes. Like we don't do that. We change things when we deem it necessary. Now, in that time, if we come across like, okay, there's a couple things that are standout, then yeah, we'll address them then. But it's not like we're not doing this just for the sake of doing it. Also, another question there on note, people are asking about the 2021 card packs. And again, we're talking about the level of changes here are not like going to invalidate that or some degree. If you're talking, those packs have over 100 cards in them each. If you're talking about like, even 10%, and that's including duplicates or something in a single pack get changed, including like points values are there, well, okay, sorry. That's not fair of me to say. If that invalidates the entire pack and purchase for you, then that's a personal decision. But that's also one of the reasons why all of our assets are made available online. Like the War Council app has all this stuff here. We never want people to pay for rules unless they absolutely want to. If and the card packs are one of those items. That's a purchase that is a nice one. Would I say it's a luxury one? That again depends on how much you are on physical cards. But all these are available for free on the website. All these are available in the War Council app. We don't want rules to ever be a barrier of entry to the game. On that same note, we feel we do have a responsibility to our competitive and tournament players here that we want this to be as balanced as it can. But that's also noting here as to why this is limited to technically a tournament document. So if you're playing casual, crack open those packs and play and do whatever you want there without any updates, that's going to be fine. Most of the things that are addressed are only for like high level tournament play and competitive games. If you're playing casually with your friends or even like a mid like casual competitive level, these are things that are probably not going to really affect you too terribly much. I mean, there are going to be some nice quality of life adjustments here and you're probably going to want to use them, but they're by no means mandatory if you just want to break open your cards and have a fun game.
Final one before we start, I promise. Are there changes to tactics cards?
There will be changes to everything that is we deem necessary to be changed. Honestly, on tactics cards, we're mostly dealing with typos and minor wording things. But if we do look at something that we do value changing, then it might be changed, yes. But I really like to how do you say this, reinforce what Michael is saying, right? That even these changes, once again, they're subtle to, let's say this, they're subtle to the medium player, right? And they're not, sorry. I think that these changes will be highly appreciated by the very extreme high-end tournament players, right? And of course, that does trickle down to the entire community, right? It does improve the game in a sense, but they're not really mandatory, right? These changes are not going to make or break the game for you, right? If you liked the game before and you read, they're really minutiaes, right? I don't want to say small because small is relative, but it's more minutia and taking care of the little nitpicky stuff.
It's one of those tricky things because like you can't really say like the level of changes here because there are some people out there that if we make any changes, like the fact that we've updated anything since the Kickstarter, they view it as a complete failure and they just are absolutely as unacceptable. But as we've stated time and time again, that's the type of game this is. This is a living war game. This is a standard war game. Like they update periodically and everything. This is no exception. But if those are type of things that are unacceptable to you and whatnot, well, that's fine. You can play if you can be playing with the Kickstarter version originally if that's all you really care about here. But that's just that's a decision that you have to make yourself. What is acceptable for the type of game that you want. So therefore, us saying that like, oh, we view these as minor or we view these as a major overhaul, that's still going to be a personal opinion here. People are going to take that differently depending. But as we said, on the topic of the tactics cards there, they received the fewest changes of anything, I would say. And it's just like, I want to say corner case scenarios, but there were some that we did evaluate for various reasons. Like I said, we didn't skimp over anything with this pass here. If we saw something that we figured could use addressing or changing, then we did it. All those will, of course, be mentioned in the update. But today, for the focus, we did just want to keep it to unit cards because they're by far the easiest to kind of like go over and explain the reasoning and rationale for them, and just to show like kind of the scope of what we're dealing with here in a lot of cases.
So should we dive in to our examples for today?
Yeah, I guess we can go into that.
Okay.
I mean, that's what people are here for. I want to jump right in. So here, for example, we have the House Clegane Mountainsmen. These guys here were just slightly underperforming for the curve, and there's a very like almost subtle change here that actually has a lot more ripple effects than I believe it would appear, and that's the changes to their Marauder's Blades ability. Where the previous version was they gain +1 hit and vicious when attacking enemies with fewer remaining ranks. Well, as you see here, we've added a couple extra words where now it is they gain that bonus for attacking enemies with the same or fewer remaining ranks. So that means if these guys go fresh into combat here, then they're going to be hitting with a 3+ to hit, vicious, and critical blow on their attack. So these guys are still maintaining the same flavor that we wanted before, where these guys, as long as they're in a good position, are basically they're bullies. As long as they're not at a disadvantage, they are going to, gain their extra bonuses. Previously, they had to be in an advantage in order to gain these, and now this has just been a slight shift where they can be on even footing and they're still doing well. As long as they're not losing their fight, then these guys are going to be getting their bonuses.
Yeah, I'd like to add on top of that before, let's say that the setup required made them, I wouldn't even say under par, but it just decentivized them when you were list building, because you knew that you needed to set them up for them to start gaining back their points. I still think you're going to want to use them to attack enemies that are already kind of roughed up, but it's still, now it's feasible from the get-go that you can try to apply this strategy in the sense of like, oh, if I get the alpha strike, then I'm gonna be an advantage, and then I just need to maintain that, right? So, well, once again, this is just adjusting them to what they should do, and basically what they already did.
See, and this is basically an example here of, this is a unit that previously required setup to be used to effectively. They had cool stuff, but that cool stuff wouldn't actually click on until you had to go out of your way to do something. And that's not something like, if that is the case, then a unit needs to be costed effectively or have some type of things to reflect that. And these guys here were costed as if they were just, going to be using their bonuses at all times. Well, now they do, as long as they're not in a bad position. Because for their raw combination of abilities that they have, where you're having a 3+ to hit, you're having critical blow, you're having vicious, with the ability to self-heal yourself and maintain that engine going, now, you have something that's actually fairly self-sustaining versus having to work for it.
And I guess we could just head on,
Yep.
let's check another one.
Next one.
Oh,
This one here is actually indicative of one of the changes that we made to hidden traps, where that ability in itself was not basically it was one of those very fine lines where in its old version it was either underperforming, but even the slightest math change to make it to up it was making it overperform here. So instead we've put this in a bit of a different direction here to basically give it two options here. Now you can either cause hits, or you can hit a guy with -1 to their maneuver. This makes this ability exceptionally deadly against like cavalry, because this affects their baseline movement stats. So if you're a cavalry movement 5 and you go down to a 4, that's going to affect your baseline cavalry maneuver and any maneuver or charge action you do during your turn. So this kind of pushes that back into that flavor aspect of hidden traps. You get that visual in your head of like, punji sticks or like, bear traps or however you want to look at that. And the first thing comes to mind is like, oh, this is something that takes down, cavalry. Well, that's what you have there. And then here against like a full rank infantry, you're getting 4 free hits against them, which is potentially enough to take down a full rank in some cases.
Yeah, once again, what's really cool about this change, to be honest, is that it's providing choice. And now hidden traps actually does have this all-comer approach where you can kind of choose which option you would have for each situation. And the -1 to movement, it's really tactical, right? And we played a lot of this internally to see like the pros and cons, and it's equivalent to dealing hits, right, in many ways. So we're very proud of this change, and this one's a change that sort of wish we had earlier, right? But once again, there's just this huge load of things that had to be done, and now we finally found what the ideal hidden traps is in my mind. So this is very interesting, and this is kind of also interesting for players who already know the other units that have hidden traps, and they can start like predicting these changes and how their lists are going to be affected through this, right? So I think this is one of the ones that had the most ripple effects throughout all armies, right?
Oh, I would go ahead and caution online though, because this happens every single time we do any of these previews. People start trying to, it's not retroactively, it's actually, I guess, proactively apply these changes across other places without seeing the full context of everything else. So like, yes, hidden traps is an ability that appears in numerous places. It would be a bad assumption to assume that like that was the only thing that changed in some of these cases. Although in this one, it's pretty much one of the lighter ones, so that's not necessarily the worst assumption. But like, it's basically don't start applying changes that you see to individual units here across a broad spectrum, because that's just going to lead to altered expectations, whether it is positive or negative.
I see. I'm glad you said that, because I saw numerous questions of people asking: has the ability changed in everywhere it shows up,
Well,
or just here? So
yes, abilities are always universal. There's no different versions of like hidden traps. Like hidden traps is hidden traps is hidden traps.
Yeah, and just again, that note of caution from Michael is very valid, where sometimes something that might have hidden traps might not now, or something else will have it. And even things that keep hidden traps, they might have stats changes to adjust to the value of what hidden traps is right now, and things like that, right? It's hard to just take this and copy paste it on everything else.
shall we move forward?
Ever forward.
Okay. Night's Watch.
So here's an example of this unit just received a straight points reduction. This went from 7 points to 6 points, and that's your change that you had happen here.
Moving
and that
on.
was
No,
yeah. I mean,
just joking.
that's really it here. I mean, just this is showing that like sometimes that's all the changes that happen. Ranger trackers we were pretty happy with, but 7 points, they were being outshone by other options within the same army. And here, we just reduced them down to 6, and they felt like a nice roll in there. Because the thing is, like, there's a baseline stat template for a lot of units, like when they're 4 points, when they're 4 points, 5 points, 6 points, 7 points, what you should basically like expect. And there's when you start trading off things, like you get your cavalry speed here, you have an extra big speed. Their lowered defense is not that great, but then you also have like their morale that's above average. Their attack profile, well, okay, you can factor in mark target, but that's not necessarily unique to them. But like their attack profile is a short ranged attack, 7 dice, 5 dice, no special weapon abilities. Yes, it hits on 3+, but these are basically a little glass cannon unit here. These guys get engaged or hitting something in combat, they're going to go down. And these guys were performing okay at 7 points, but they were definitely on the weaker end. So putting them down to 6 points, that makes them a viable choice here. But and sometimes that's all the changes that need to be made. And by the way, not we're going to dwell on this too much because we want to keep things here positive. But yes, we're aware of don't think that yes, Night's Watch is just getting a flat 1 point reduction across the board and that's it. There are changes coming here, but we're just showing here some of the ups and downs, because that's something to expect. Everyone is getting ups, some people are getting downs as well. So don't think that that's the case there. Just want to throw that out there for all you Night's Watch fans, or actually frenemies, I'll go ahead and say. What do we got next?
Let's see.
Fabio, you want to take this one?
Okay. So, I'm sorry. I'm even a little bit confused. I think it's just the attack value.
It is just
it?
just the attack value on this. They moved to a 3+
I'm not going
to
crazy.
hit.
Yeah. Okay. So the Bloody Bomber skirmishers, we moved their attack to a 3+ to hit. And once again, this is just explaining the rationale behind this. Is that if they're a very offensive and very glass cannon kind of unit, then they did deserve this quality of life improvement in their attack profile. So they have a bite, right? Because before they didn't have that much of a bite, and then your opponent was kind of okay with leaving them there doing their thing, and now their thing is a big thing. and they have more potential, and that forces you to sort of have to deal with them, have to attack them, right? And have to exploit their weakness, which is their defense.
So this is another case here where you have a unit that has, frankly, like pretty subpar defensive stats, 5+, 7+. They need to make up for that in else places. And these guys actually received a stealth buff here as well, because as we spoke about in the last live stream, one of the core rule changes, one of the only like 2 that actually are in there, are the combat rules, where if you are engaged with a unit, you have to attack them or you have to retreat. You can no longer just idly pass your action. So if you're engaged with these guys, you don't have the option to just sit there and pass. You've got to actually deal with them by attacking them and suffering the effects of disrupt and counterstrike, or you have to retreat from them, and in which case you might be putting yourself at a positional disadvantage. So these guys fulfill that element of area control via those means, and also just being a general pain in the ass to deal with. But again, they still needed a little bit of a bite, because if they die to a stiff breeze, then they need to have something to make up for that. And so that was just a little change here, moving them to a 3+ to hit.
And that does significantly increase power, like damage output, right? Throughout the game if they don't die.
Well, as we talked about before, like a 3+ to hit, um, if you are going to get a 3+ to hit, you're either going to be an expensive elite unit, or you're going to have some type of trade-off there. You can't just be a cheap costed tanky offensive unit, on that full capacity.
Shall we move on, or do you still have more to cover on these guys?
No, we
That's
shall.
it.
Let's not linger on these bloody mummers.
Just something really, really fast before we move forward. This Halloween, Chase called it first. You're a bloody mummer. Okay, now moving forward.
I guess that wasn't even. I guess that's not even a question. That was more of a demand there.
Exactly.
Which, okay, I guess that has to happen then.
I love the anxiety. Like, it's January and people are already planning for Halloween.
Well, keep in mind, he didn't say Halloween. He said next time you're in costume. Which, Fabio, when is Carnival?
No, I was gonna say, like, I have to talk with my wife. I'm just joking.
With face painted off limits. No face.
But jokes apart, as long as I don't, or still in jokes, let's say, I'll do it all in acrylic paints. Let's spend that money and get intoxicated with expensive mini paints.
Oh my god.
So Fabio, I will actually allow. Let's have you talk about this one here, because I just had a genius idea, and I will be right back. Noting Helena and Fabio, I can still hear everything, because that's the glory of Bluetooth. I will be right back though. So.
Okay. Let's start talking about our Then Warriors here then, while we wait for Michael. I think that the main change here, or the only, my memory fails me, but the Then Warriors are here so we can talk about Hold the Line, right? And if you guys take a look at the ability, it's now much different. And basically now we believe that for the Then Warriors, they needed a little bit more of a damage output and a way to synergize with their taunt. So Hold the Line now does that. And it's just, okay, it's an attrition fight. We're engaged, we're in attrition. So now whenever I activate, I'm already going to do a little bit of, I'm going to say splash damage. I know that's very video gamey. It's not that much of a war game term, but it does that splash damage, right? Which is really interesting. And it really does make a nice fit for the Then Warriors, instead of them just being flat out, in giant air quotes, the tanky unit. And we are sprinkling Hold the Line in a couple of other places and factions where we deem fit, and because we believe this is actually a great ability that can push the game agenda forward of the attrition factions.
So yeah, in the case here, for example, Then Warriors had the ability to taunt. They can pull guys into combat and dislocate them. But then again, once they did that, it was like, okay, well, now what? They're not really a threat. They just sit there with their 7 dice, 4+ to hit, no special abilities, just kind of wailing on you. And yeah, they're a 5-point unit, so that's to be expected. But again, that's what they did. They had a taunt ability that you would use once, maybe twice per game if you got lucky, and then that's it. Now these guys actually have a little bit of teeth to them. So, now once they're engaged, whether it be via taunt or just getting up in combat something, they're going to start grinding you out. They're no longer an option of you just being able to sit there and just ignore them. So, by the way, just to sidetrack for a second, just to show, since we were talking about costumes and everything, fun fact, pretty much every single Night's Watch cloak in the TV show was a rug bought from IKEA, and I just happen to remember I am a person that owns a bunch of rugs from IKEA. So, congrats. Here's now my costume for the day.
So next time we wear a costume is now. That's
Michael
I have to show everyone, up here, just show dedication. So yeah, now we're, here, there, full costume, done.
It actually looks. It does look good. Did you
I
just pick up a rug?
This is literally the rug that my cat sleeps on. So
Oh my
yes,
God.
he wasn't very happy about me taking it from him there. Now I'm just kidding. But yeah, literally like that's how much the costumes were furnished in the TV show. Were just IKEA rugs. So yeah.
At least he didn't say this is my cat, right? But
Yeah, well, could be weirder.
This I have to say, like the Thin Warrior changes here. This is one of the ones I liked a lot of because I know how many people like thins just as a concept from the Free Folk.
Yeah.
Let's see what our next one is.
move
Yep.
along.
I was looking out for questions, but let's move on. Oh, hello there.
Hello, dragons.
Hello, dragons.
All right, so
I would say, would you mind, Michael?
No, go ahead.
No, I was.
Oh, you
would
want me
mind
to?
picking it up? Yeah.
Okay, sure. So looking at the dragons here, this has always been a contention point for people. This is the thing is like talking about the actual units. Yes, we've made changes to this, but this is much more of the other pieces to that army are the things that are really more affected than anything else. But let's just look at the dragons here, for example. We did reduce their damage output from D3 plus 3 wounds flat to now D3 wounds plus 1 wound for each of the remaining ranks in the unit. So if you're up against a solo, you'll do D3 plus 1, still have a decent chance of taking that stuff out. But then again, a full infantry unit, you're going to still start with your same baseline damage that you did before of a D3 plus 3, as they would have full ranks. But then as they begin to get whittled down, your damage is going to slowly go down with it. The dragons still have the same capabilities that they did before to like hurt things, but now it's not so much of a guaranteed thing. And this is just again one of those slight modifiers here that happen to them. And I'm going to say slight, and I already can see people like raising up and going like, oh yeah, slight, that's not slight. But again, we're talking perspectives here. This is a numbers change from a flat 3 to 1 per rank, and that's the change there. This is also one of those things that allows us to do more rank play, which is something that we talked about doing more of in the 2021 update was one of the goals, and this is just more reflecting in with that.
I see a question. Has their points also increased, or
no? They're the same points as they were before.
Same points as they were
It's 8
before.
points per unit.
Can I spoil stuff, Michael? Or how do you feel? I don't know if you know where I'm going.
I mean, I know where you're going. I personally hate spoilers, but let's we'll let you make that decision, see if it outcasts you to the wall and beyond.
Okay, we are changing the Mother of Dragons special rules card. I'll say that. So that will have consequences on just in general the way that the dragons are going to be put in list building, right? It and I believe it's for the better. Just in all Daenerys's are going to just be more interesting now as a whole, Daenerys's and dragons. And I'll kind of leave it at that for rampant speculation for when we do show it and people are going to say, oh, that was just it. But that's fine. That's what I want. Let's see the world burn.
Okay, so moving forward, I think
Champions of the Stag.
That's our last card, right?
Oh, we're already there at the end? Okay. But yeah, so Champions of the Stag here. This is another unit that we added an ability to them rather than tweak an existing one because we felt they needed a little bit of an oomph to help with their grind. And that's under Champion's Wrath, where the final ability there, if this unit began the turn engage the defender, before rolling attack dice, the defender becomes vulnerable. So again, this is pushing more of that grindy attrition style format for the Baratheons and just making sure that once they're actually in combat where they want to be, then you're actually, getting the benefits there and they're becoming a threat. So yeah, you don't want to be, because previously before you get in combat, these guys, yeah, they're really hard to take down, but they would just be sitting there wailing on you a critical blow. And, for a giant expensive cavalry unit, okay, well, great. I probably could have done that with a cheaper unit. Now though, it's actually an issue where, if you're engaged with them, they're going to constantly be pelting you with critical blow and vulnerable. And then still have that nasty 2+, 6+ defense stave.
Yeah, I think you've said it all, right? Before they were always a threat, but at their points cost, right, and at the range of effectiveness that they had to be, just being a big stone wasn't enough, right? They needed a little bit more oomph and we gave it to them.
Yeah, so I guess, today, this is just basically viewed as like a taste of things to come. This is some of the type of like changes and things you can expect here, where, we tried to keep things subtle if need be. We didn't overhaul, like, really. I can't think of anything that jumps to my mind immediately. That's like, oh yeah, this has got completely overhauled because it needed some rampant giant change here. A lot of these things here are just numbers got shifted around, some points costs got shifted around, things like that. And that's evident by what we've shown here today. And of course, like we said before, this extends to all facets of it. Tactics cards got changed if need to, NCUs got changed if they need to, some attachments. But those will all be broken down in the updates. You'll have the full dev designer notes and everything there for that. So
just recap, when can people expect to see this?
well, we're waiting on like the final graphics and formatting and editing for all those files to be ready, because again, it's a coordinated effort between our app, our website, graphics department, all that. Hopefully, we really ideally want to have that out by the end of this month. It might be just the start of February though, just depending on how that timetable gets together.
Okay.
But of course, we'll have announcements out on Facebook and all of the standard means there and everything when it's coming out.
Yeah. So I believe that covers our main subject of the day.
I believe so. Unless there's anything else you want to add there, Fabio.
No, I'm fine. If we want to run through a couple of questions, I'm actually really excited reading the chat today. There's a lot of familiar names in here, and I like to see that the people are interacting amongst themselves, which is a really positive note on 2022, that we have a strong community of people who, once again, are now familiar. I recognize most of these names, so I'm really happy.
Something I actually do need to mention as well, that I should have mentioned at the beginning: reinforced in the middle and then reinforced at the end. So 3 strikes against me there. But we did talk about this in the last live stream, but all of our cards here that we are updating will be available via print on demand services as well. We are still getting that coordinated up with some independent companies in the US to get that handled with, which unfortunately have fallen victim to supply chain issues, paper shortages, and things like that. But they are still believing they're on track and everything, but we're still waiting for all the final stuff there. So if that is not available at launch of these updates, it will be available shortly after that as well. But those plans are still in motion, as we talked about last time, and still moving forward there. So.
And on the digital aspect, what about War Council? Will it run in beta mode?
There will be no need for beta mode, right? As I think he's referring to the way we did things on 2021 update, where you could play either still in 1.7 or in 1.6 or 2021 until we finished the whole rollout, and then we ended the beta version, right? Now these changes are just going to pop up there.
Right? Yeah, this is like when the 2021 updates went live a couple months back. Sorry, when they went in beta previously, because we were waiting for the card packs to become available in distribution, but we went ahead and released that into the app, which is why there was those 2 versions going. Now that the card packs have been released and are making their way across the world, and they are available in most places, but they're still making their way some places, but the app was updated to everything for full version there. But there's no need to keep 2 versions of that going, so it's just going to update as standard.
Okay, I see lots of people asking about Lady.
Yeah, this is genuine ladies, ladies in the coat and everything. She dead, okay? She dead. DEDE dead.
DD dead. Okay.
I mean, I think that's a good way to end the chat, but.
A few questions about Cury being banished to the wall. So I'm what I get from this is no real question. It's just people having fun. Who got the most changes? That's an interesting one. Who do you feel got the most changes?
Well, again, that was the question that was asked way at the beginning of the chat here, and as we said, like, most in the yeah, if you're talking like raw numbers and everything, then I guess it would be Stark and or Lannister, because like in my head, I'm thinking about like, okay, well, if one ability got changed, that was across an attachment. There's technically like 3 versions of that attachment that got changed. Like the guard captain, I can spoilers there. That was one of the things that got updated. So technically, there are 3, I think, 4 versions of that card. So if you're talking raw numbers, that kind of bulks it up there. But frankly, I think a lot of the changes are kind of like, they're kind of balanced across most factions because again, it wasn't a huge amount of stuff in each faction. Now, granted, the different stuff that got changed in each faction, yeah, that digress. Because like I know, like Stark and Baratheon had a couple tactics cards that got changed. Meanwhile, like I don't think there were any in most other factions that did. So like that's something that came to my mind immediately. And then Greyjoys, of course, received the lowest amount of overall changes because the only things that got changed with them were a couple of things that got rules updates. Like we had talked about this on the last stream where Relentless had been changed to whereas melee attacks only, it doesn't allow a free range attack. That affects like Vicarion in Greyjoys. So that affects him. And then there were some changes to well, there was one other in there, but that's the only one that I can remember off the top of my head. Because like none of the Greyjoy units, tactics cards, or anything like that got changed. Because first off, there wasn't anything that jumped out as needing to be addressed, and secondly, like again, there's not enough collective data of them out because they're still the newest faction.
And also on top of that, not necessarily we were looking and thinking like, okay, Starks, what needs to be changed in Starks, and then just kind of like ignoring the rest and then going to Lannisters, right? Where we look at these things not only at specifics, but a lot of overall analysis is done as well. So we actually looked and we said, okay, hidden traps needs changing, and not necessarily Starks, right? Not necessarily Crannogmen themselves change. Although if you change hidden traps, you're effectively changing Crannogmen, right? But you're also changing a lot of free folk stuff. You know, you're messing with other factions whenever you change an ability, and that's a lot of what we did, right? Like for example, once again, hold the line. That's why we chose these cards to kind of show that when we did change things, if it wasn't numbers, it's probably affecting a lot of places. So it's pretty balanced out. Of course, there's a faction that got the most changes and the least, and Greyjoys notably gets the least changes, but it's, I would kind of want to say it's even though like if one has twice as many as the other, the numbers are so low, like the difference, 2 was twice as much as 1, but but it's still a low number, right? And that's sort of what I feel that is going on right now.
And the other point there is that none of these changes are taken in a bubble. Just because you change one ability, you got to see all the ripple effects that changing that one ability does across the entire game, across the entire units. Which granted, okay, sometimes you can look at things in a little bit of a bubble, like okay, we're gonna change this unit's value from a to hit from a 4+ to a 3+. That's not really going to externally affect any other unit, but now you have to make that same comparison across other units that are in the same faction, neutrals, and category and everything, and see now what's happening there. But that's all things that's gone through. But anyway, that's again more stuff for like the dev and design notes and things like that you can read up yourself. So I think at this point we're kind of just recycling the same things that we've said, and we don't want to just keep going there.
Here. So, what do you say we keep this one short and sweet so people can see for themselves in a week or two, and say bye to our viewers?
Yep, sounds good. Call
Sounds
it right
good.
at the 45-minute mark there. Good time.
Yep, good time. So
right.
Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you all for joining us. Any final words from you guys?
I hope you get your Bannermen on the battlefield.
Neat. Well, like like we said, we appreciate everyone turning out for these chats and everything. We enjoyed seeing with the community and everything, seeing the feedback and everything there. And like we've said before, everything that we're doing here, we appreciate all the support and feedback that we get from everyone out there and all the continued players that we have for it. So that's the reason we do all this. We put all the effort in here is for you guys, and just so you guys can have just the best gaming experience that you guys can. So again, we appreciate you.
Well, and with that, thank you very much, and see you all next time. Bye.
Bye from the wall.